The Colts list of head coaching candidates is about to be chopped down greatly. Who will those finalists be? We'll tell you what we think today on Locked On Colts. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is presented by PrizePicks, which is daily fantasy made easy. Just pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, then you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. I'm Jake Arthur, he's Zach Hicks, and you know the two of us from HorseshoeHuddle.com. Today, finally have some, development in the Colts head coaching search, aside from just new names being added to the list all the time. If you're watching this, you're probably on the list as well. But the Colts are finally apparently going to chop this thing down. Reports say from about 13 candidates that have been interviewed or still to be, down to 5. And so on today's show, we're going to tell you which 5 candidates we think the Colts are going to have chopped down to and which 5 we would choose. So first, Zach, I couldn't find it anywhere, but I saw multiple people mention it. Pro Football Talk, I guess, mentioned that they're going down to 5. Tom Pelissero, who I did see Tom Pelissero mention it, he basically backed that up. He said Jim Irsay was not in on any of the interviews previously to this point, but he is going to be on the interviews in person with these 5 candidates, and apparently is going to be open-minded about it, which we can all just really pray for on that. But yeah, what do you think? I don't think there, other than it being this week or in the next few days, I guess, is the timeline. But what do you think?
Yeah, so especially when they mention this bringing it down to 5, obviously we don't know the exact details about that. I do trust Pro Football Talk and Tom Pelissero's reports because if anything, Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio, he is connected with agents, and I know he's kind of connected with Chris Ballard's agent in particular. So I'm not saying believe everything he says because sometimes it's a little hit or miss, but I do believe him with this report here. And it's not like the Colts aren't going to come out and say, oh, here's our 5 guys left. They're not going to do that. The way it's probably going to go is they're going to start requesting second interviews, probably middle of this next week. So if you guys are listening to this on Monday, I'm assuming they'll be doing D'Amico Ryan's interview and Wink Martindale's interview within, either Sunday, the day we're recording this, or Monday, the day you are listening. They'll knock out those last 2. And then I would say probably by Wednesday or Thursday at the latest, you'll start seeing second interview requests like trickle in. Typically, those will be like the in-person ones, because I think after this weekend, all interviews can be in person. So that's where Jim Irsay is going to sit in. So up to this point, if we could believe the reports that have been going out, it's mostly just been Chris Ballard sitting down with these guys and kind of limiting his list to who he wants. And then Jim Irsay is going to sit in. And like you said, hopefully he sits in with an open mind. Hopefully he's not sitting in with one candidate in particular in his head. Hopefully he's actually going to be listening to what his general manager is telling him and showing him.
Saturday's actually going to be in on the interviews with the other guys as well, sitting next to Irsay.
Just shaking his head, tapping him on the shoulder like, no. Yeah. I'm also going to bring my own staff. That's my unique thing I'm doing. That's the thing that keeps going around. Jeff Saturday's going to bring his own staff. I hope so. That's what they do.
So is everyone.
But anyway, not just not talk everything about Jeff Saturday. Yeah, I do think we'll start seeing the second round of interviews kind of going out here soon. And then I would guess we'd probably have a next head coach by late next week, early the week after that. Not next week, this week coming up, but the week after, like late that week, maybe the week after that. Maybe they'll do a third round of interviews, but they probably won't. They'll probably just do the second round and then go from there. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to say we're in the waning days of this search here, but at least we're getting some progress instead of just, requesting interviews with every single person under the sun and just talking to everyone, which I don't mind. I know a lot of people have been going a little upset about the Colts being like, oh, this is crazy, too wide a net. It's like, everything's over Zoom right now. So if you're talking to all these guys for 10 minutes even just to get a feel for them, and just being like, hey, we're talking to you because we know that you've done some good things. And if you impress us, boom, we'll talk to you some more. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But yeah, we are starting to finally get some progress here and narrowing it down to 5 instead of 13, 14 that we've seen. Yeah, this is definitely a step in the right direction with this search.
Yeah, I think we're definitely getting closer. I know Chris Ballard said, he doesn't mind if it bleeds into February as long as they get it right. I don't really see it going that long unless this person is from a team who is still alive in the postseason and is just not going to commit to anything until the season is over. 49ers, the Eagles just won, Chiefs, there's candidates from pretty much a lot of these teams floating out there. So, yeah, it's we're definitely getting closer. I mean, they're gutting this group down to the bits. So man, I mean, the next best thing to talk about is who we think it's going to be, who we want it to be. So next, the Colts are going to have an impressive final group to pick from, regardless, I think. But first, let's talk about some things that you guys are in control of picking, and that's NFL players for these playoff matchups with PrizePicks. Just pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their stat projections, then you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you can watch, and entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Withdrawals are safe and fast as well, and PrizePicks is currently now operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That means if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, they'll match you with $50. Don't forget to enter our promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, so Zach, this is definitely going to be a battle of head versus heart. Our heart tells us who we want it to be. Our head, we know better who the Colts are going to pick. Luckily, I think we have a decent idea, just using context of like guys who have connections with the Colts already, or like Chris Ballard, Jim Irsay, what have you. And then, Raheem Morris, we've heard his interview went really well, so you can kind of connect the dots there. So I'll let you go ahead. Who do you think their 5 is?
All right, so I'm going to differ from your list because I'm kind of cheating. Your list is right in front of me, so
yeah.
That's why I get to go first. I have to think off the top of my head with this, but
Right.
I agree with you. What you're going to say, Raheem Morris, I think is definitely going to be in the second round. From all reports, I mean, from the indie beat reporters, the guys who are tuned in, Zach Kiefer, Mike Chappell, those are guys who know Irsay, know this Colts organization, and know Chris Ballard. And that's the only candidate we've seen so far that has gotten positive traction within the local media in terms of that interview went really well. Raheem Morris impressed. We've heard it from multiple indie guys, and even some national guys has said the same thing. So I think Raheem Morris for sure is going to get that second interview, and I think that's well deserved. I think number 2, I'm going to go with Brian Callahan, the Bengals offense coordinator. And this is all these guys I'm about to say who I think are not going to be based off any source stuff or anything like that, guys, purely off of vibes for me here. But Brian Callahan, I was doing some research on him today on Sunday when we're recording this, just kind of looking into his candidacy. And this is a guy who has so many connections to Indy and just everything in Indy, from starting with, obviously, early in his career, he won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos, working alongside Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning obviously would give a great recommendation about him. Peyton Manning's not shy about giving recommendations about guys he's worked with in the past. And then you just look at some guys that he would even bring to Indy, some potential staff guys like that. I think the QB coach for the Bengals was a Colts scout from 2012 to 2015. So he worked in the Colts scouting department. One of their defensive coaches, I think their linebacker coach there for the Bengals, he started his career as a coach with the Colts in 2012. And before that, he worked at Ball State and St. Francis at the college level. So there's a lot of options and a lot of connections to him to Indy and guys that he could potentially bring coming to Indy. And I think they're going to be enamored with what he's done with the Bengals. So yeah, I think Brian Callahan, as long as the interview went well, I think he's going to be in that final 5. I'm also going to throw another guy, Mike Kafka. I think is going to definitely be in that top 5, mainly because of that connection with Andy Reid and the Chiefs organization. Chris Ballard is not shy about liking guys from his past and liking things from his past. And Mike Kafka, even though he's not currently working with the Chiefs, has that great connection with Andy Reid and everything Chiefs. And Chris Ballard obviously came from the Chiefs. So again, as long as that interview went well, I think that's definitely going to be there. I think Shane Steichen will be in that top 5 as well. I went back and forth between him and D'Amico Ryans, and the only reason I don't think D'Amico Ryans is going to be in the top 5 is because every single day it seems we're getting more and more reports about D'Amico Ryans to Houston heating up and getting closer and closer. So they might not even bother with Ryans because it looks like it's going to go to Houston. But I do think they're going to love D'Amico Ryans when they do talk to him. I don't know what the interest level is going to be on both sides. If Ryans is like, he's just set on Houston. So we'll see with that one. But yeah, Shane Steichen, I think, will be in there, even though he's very much like Frank Reich. It's hard to ignore the best offensive mind in football, the best young offensive mind in football. So I think he'll be in there. And my last one, I'm going to go with Dan Quinn. I know that's a name that not a lot of you guys do not love and don't want, but I do think the Colts want kind of that energetic, experienced coach. Raheem Morris is obviously one of them. Dan Quinn is another one, a guy who has been to the Super Bowl as a head coach, a guy who has had a lot of ups and downs and currently is in the midst of a hopefully still going playoff run. We don't know. You guys are listening on Monday. The Cowboys have not played yet at the time we're recording, but I do think Dan Quinn's another guy they'd be impressed with. So yeah, Dan Quinn, Shane Steichen, Raheem Morris, Brian Callahan, and who was the other one I said? I said one more, didn't I? I can't remember the other one I said.
No, I can't either. Yeah. So,
who did I say?
It'll come back
up. But yeah, you guys heard it. You guys heard it. Throw it in the comments. But yeah, no, those are the 5 that I think will become who the Colts will go down to 5 with and talk. Mm-hmm. Oh, Mike Kafka. Mike Kafka is the other 5. Yeah, the other one in there. I think that's who the Colts are going to limit down to. And honestly, if this is Chris Ballard's search as of right now, those are the 5 I think he would pick.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're going to go a different way with it. If Jim Irsay is putting one candidate in there. But, I've been fairly hard on Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard a lot in the past year. So I'm going to give them a little bit of benefit of doubt. I'm going to say that Jim Irsay has been swayed at least a little bit by fan opinion and realizing that he just can't hire Jeff Saturday as the head coach. I'm just going to be confident in that. I'm confident Jim Irsay is not a dumb man. He's made some crazy decisions in the past half a year, but he's not a dumb man. He knows football. And I'm hoping that eventually he got it out of his head that Jeff Saturday cannot be the head coach. And I don't think he'll be in the finalist. I could be 100% proven wrong. I don't think he's going to be in the final 5. And if he is, it's more of just courtesy. And they're going to go with one of these other 5 guys. But maybe that's just wishful thinking at this point, me showing some optimism for the first time in half a year. But I don't know. I don't get the feeling that Jeff Saturday is going to be the head coach anymore, which is, a weight off my shoulders at least.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be the guy in the end just because they have interviewed so many guys, and it's hard to believe that he would come away as the one most prepared and ready and most qualified to be the head coach. It just doesn't make sense.
No.
I do have him in the final, though, just because it's one of those things where I'd have to believe it to see it that he's not involved in the final mix. His name's been attached this whole time. So many people who seem to have knowledge of the situation have said, don't rule out Jeff Saturday. He's still in it, this and that. Like every single report still mentions it. So
I will say one thing about that before you list your 5 guys.
Mm-hmm.
What we've seen a lot lately is a lot of non-local guys saying, don't rule out Jeff Saturday, or Jeff Saturday did an underrated good job. And I can say with some speculation and some not speculation here, that Jeff Saturday has been reaching out to a lot of his friends in the media to kind of get that narrative out there, trying to get the fan opinion to switch around. But as you can see by the comments on any post like that, it is 100% not switching. Again, I'm feeling, personally, I don't know. Maybe I just feel confident. I don't think he's going to really be a contender for this job anymore. Just by the way this search has gone down, how many guys they have talked to, how many qualified guys they've talked to, and just how ravenous the fan response is against Jeff Saturday, which is great. It should be. It should not be positive for him being the head coach. I mean, the fan response has been crazy. If you look at anything that Jim Irsay tweets or posts or whatever, every single comment is, please do not hire Jeff Saturday. Don't hire Jeff Saturday. Like, don't. He sees that stuff. Like, he might not be reading every single comment, but he sees it. And I really do think it's going to sway this a little bit. But yeah, until a guy like Mike Chappell says Jeff Saturday is going to be a finalist, I'm not going to believe Jordan Schultz or Dan Orlovsky hyping him up, because I think those are the guys that Saturday's going to kind of try to get himself back into it. But that's just my speculation-ish on the situation. But it I mean, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if he is in the final five, but I want to be a little hopeful now. It's a new year, new me. Let's be a little hopeful now, Jake.
Does it still count as a new year? We're almost a month in.
Yeah, new year, new me.
So in the next segment, I'll address that. I would not obviously have him in my final five, and I know you wouldn't. But I have him just because I feel like we have to. Raheem Morris, all the same reasons. Interview went well by all reports, and he's probably the most qualified candidate out there that they've talked to. So that's kind of a shoo-in for me on that. I have Shane Steichen, the most forward-thinking offensive young coach of the whole group. Easy. His team is still alive. He's coaching an MVP candidate. Really the only other guy who could probably rival Patrick Mahomes in that race right now. D'Amico Ryans, I think that's another easy one. Final interview. Do they wow each other? Is Ryans bought in enough? If he's agreed to an interview, then, which at first we kind of thought maybe wouldn't even happen. Right. But we thought that about Steichen as well. So is there an 11th hour wowing there? He's a great candidate. He was arguably the hottest candidate in the whole cycle coming in. So as long as there's, as long as things don't go sour, I see that working out. Bubba Ventrone. Now the reason I have this one, he's potentially the biggest dark horse other than like Aaron Glenn or Rich Bisaccia. Right. But Chris Ballard has said on coaching searches before, you don't want to miss what's right there staring at you. And if Frank Reich was going to be fired regardless during the season, and the whole Jeff Saturday thing didn't exist, I'm pretty confident saying Bubba Ventrone would have been the interim head coach. Right. And, everyone in there thinks very highly of him. Chris Ballard thinks very highly of him. If they want to go the energetic young guy route, you have one right there. So I think, his resume speaks for itself. His special teams units, even if they have one big wart on there, they always rank near the top. The punting was not great this year, but they still rank near the top as a unit in terms of metrics. And, PFF still had them right there near the top. The Adam Vinatieri disaster year, 2019, they were still ranked pretty well otherwise. So there's not a whole lot more Ventrone can do to prove himself. And they've had a look at him every day. Let's see, and that's my five. So we'll be able to discuss some others here in a minute. But I'm surprised. Normally, you and I are lockstep on just about everything. This is one of the first segments in a while we've had some differing opinions.
Jake, it's a new year. I'm a new person. I'm it's time for us to break away a little bit. Still within our same niche here, but I think it's tough. I got to break away from the womb a little bit here, Jake. So that's that's the way we're going with that. But next, guys, we're going to talk about who we are pounding the table for among these coaching candidates and who our final five guys would be. But first, the NFL playoffs are here. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers, join today and get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. Colts fans, our guy T.Y. Hilton is kind of cheap this week. I know you guys are listening to this on Monday, so I'm hoping that somehow I shot this into the energy shot this into the world for you guys, and you can feel my energy coming off of this podcast. It's coming on Monday morning. But yeah, T.Y. Hilton, man, just 7,500 on this Cowboys matchup against 49ers. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot to keep up with that 49ers offense. So somehow, if you guys are reading my mind and going crazy right now, or maybe if you guys are looking forward to the next week if the Cowboys won, T.Y. Hilton, definitely get him in your lineups. This is all on the app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Jake, I'm going to shoot this last section to you, but, again, 13 candidates left. There were 14 in total. Ben Johnson obviously went back to Detroit. So of the 13 candidates that have a chance to be in this final 5, who are your 5 guys that you would want in that final grouping?
Yeah, my list of 5 I would want is pretty similar to who I think they'll go. I got Jeff Saturday out of there, and I was able to replace him with Brian Callahan because that was my toughest cut for who I think. And it's for the same reasons you mentioned, all the connections. There's so much there that you really can't ignore. But he's also got a great resume. He's championing one of the best offenses of the last couple of years. Very productive group. He's worked with some great quarterbacks, so that's a guy. And honestly, I've gone through and looked at several of these candidates because I want to hear what their players say about him and stuff.
Right.
Rave reviews for Brian Callahan, and Peyton Manning can be a guy who. If Peyton doesn't F with you, he's just going to not talk about you, or he will drag you,
Right.
And so if you get the stamp of approval and Peyton P-Funk's out there talking positively about you, then that's great. I mean, he also talked very highly of Adam Gase, which is like, that's kind of a scout,
Careful.
scout the player, not the helmet type of thing, though. It's like Ohio State players for the Colts. But no, Brian Callahan was my guy I didn't get to fit in before. But yeah, I want Shane Steichen because I want that forward-thinking, young, energetic. Well, he's not like a rah-rah guy, but that forward-thinking offensive mind. Maybe his playbook, maybe a little less diverse than Frank's maybe, which should help some guys in the long term. Raheem Morris, obviously, again, probably the most qualified guy. Bubba, I'm ready to see it. I'll go down in flames with you if it doesn't work, but I'm ready to see it. And then D'Amico Ryans, again, was probably the hottest defensive candidate. I just think it's really impressive. The Colts wound up coming away out of the cycle with arguably the top offensive guy in Shane Steichen and defense with D'Amico Ryans. And then Dan Quinn, he's someone in there as well. He's just not a sexy option, so he doesn't like jump off the page to me. But again, very, very qualified candidate.
Yeah. I don't have too many changes from who I guess would be in there. Dan Quinn wouldn't be in my 5, but basically what I would do, and it's pretty obvious who you guys would expect. I'm just going to have basically the same names as Jake's here, except for Bubba. I love Bubba. I really do think one day he's going to be a very good head coach, but I would replace Bubba with Mike Kafka. I just go with all those offensive name guys. So I would go for the big 3. I'm calling these guys the big 3 because I think they are the 3 offensive-minded guys who could best help a young rookie quarterback. If you guys read my article on Saturday about the coaching superlatives, I went on a mini rant at the end of that article about these 3 guys, Brian Callahan, Mike Kafka, and Shane Steichen. Any one of those guys would be best equipped to take this young quarterback that the Colts are going to take top 5 and take him to the next level and make him this franchise passer that the Colts desperately need. The best way to get that guy to the next level is to have an offensive head coach that's not going to leave after a year or 2. That's going to be here for a long time. So those 3 are definitely my top guys. But for the 2 defensive guys, I want D'Amico Ryans, obviously, and then Raheem Morris. I've been watching so much on Raheem Morris lately and just seeing how the players respond to him, seeing his coaching philosophy, seeing how adaptable he is. And just from everything I've seen, man, I am so impressed by Raheem Morris. Like, even if he's not the perfect fit for what the Colts are going to be going into these next couple of years of, again, young quarterback, you need to develop him. You need to keep him consistent. I think he's going to be just a phenomenal head coach this next. And I really think he is going to be like Mike Tomlin in his next spot. Like, just a very consistent rah-rah guy who's just the players just absolutely love. And he just gets it now. Like, his first stint was not great, and no one's going to argue that. But since then, he's done a lot of growing. He's a very different coach now. And I think he's well equipped to really run an NFL franchise. So if he ends up being the pick, I'm going to be super pumped. I love Raheem Morris, and I think he's going to do a great job. But any of these guys I have in my final five, or honestly, even in my other five with who I think Chris Ballard's going to pick, I'd be happy with any of these guys. I really think there's an avenue to success for all of these guys. But yeah, those are the five I would have. It would be Callahan, Kafka, Steichen, D'Amico Ryans, and Raheem Morris in the five that I would personally have as the final grouping.
I don't think there, between our five, I don't think there's a wrong answer in there at all. And I let's see, they have 2 more interviews. I think they're knocking out Martindale probably literally as we're speaking right now. And then is Ryan's, have they said yet when? Is it going to be Monday?
I think the plan is for it to be Monday. Again, okay. Who knows what the traction is going to be like with him in Houston. He actually did his Cardinals interview like the morning of Sunday morning, the morning we're talking. He did it before their game. I know a lot of people were giving pushback on that, but it's like, dude, it's a 20-minute Zoom interview. Like, he can do that in the morning of a game. But I think the Colts are going to be the next day, just so he's not stacking interviews right before he's going to a game. But yeah, I would guess the Colts are going to be Monday or Tuesday for him.
Yeah, well, excited to see how that turns out. But I mean, obviously, you guys, if you've been following us the past couple weeks, it's been all head coach all the time because the stuff just keeps changing constantly. So I think you could probably guess what tomorrow's show will be about. I'm sure we'll talk plenty about the head coaching search. Maybe we'll pepper some other stuff in there if something comes up. But for now, the main objective is to find the new leader for this team.
Yeah, I would guess that this search goes on until early February is where I would think is when the Colts are going to have their new head coach. So, guys, if you want more updates on this coaching search until early February or whenever they get it, make sure you're following us on social media at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2 on Twitter. Also, subscribe to Locked On Colts on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. And thank you guys for making us your first listen of the day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you the local insights you love to the national spotlight with daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow.